What is Mizoram's government? What is their take on the refugee issue right now with the Kuki Chin refugees?
Yes, yes, this is a very important question since we are talking about the Mizoram elections. Because the ruling party, the MNF's handling of the refugees and displaced Kuki Chin Zo people from Myanmar, Manipur, and also Bangladesh, and also the rising tide of Zo nationalism in the state as a reaction to the displacement of the community in the recent times is eventually expected to work in favor of the MNF. For those of who might not be aware in the audience, I would like to mention that hundreds and thousands of Kuki Chin refugees displaced who have been displaced from their homes in Myanmar and strife-torn Manipur have made Mizoram their home, and Mizoram is already it is already a financially burdened state. Now, here we must take note of the fact that both Mizoram and Manipur share long international borders with Myanmar. Six out of Mizoram's 11 districts share a more than 500-kilometer long, unfenced, and mountainous border with the Chin state of Myanmar. And Mizoram also shares a more than 300-kilometer long, unfenced border with Bangladesh. Directions were being given Orders were being given to the governments of both Manipur and Mizoram by the Union Ministry of Home Affairs in April this year, just a month before the outbreak of the Manipur conflict, to identify the illegal immigrants from Myanmar at the earliest and obtain their biometric and biographic details. But this was met with vehement resistance from the ruling MNF. In fact, in the month of June this year, June 2023, both Manipur and Mizoram were directed by the central government to complete the campaign by the end of September and prepare a plan of action to initiate this process. But the Chief Minister of Mizoram, Mr. Zoramthanga, and his government has been consistently defying the central government's order to deport Myanmar nationals by refusing to collect their biometric data. Why? Because it has said that it could not do so because it would amount to discrimination against people who are of their own blood. And much before the outbreak of the conflict in Manipur, Mizoram had already opened its doors to refugees who were fleeing the army crackdown in Myanmar. Earlier, earlier also, the government of Mizoram had ignored the center's orders to close the border several times. Now, it is because the Mizos believe that the Kuki Chins of Myanmar and Bangladesh, they share with the Mizos a common ethnicity. And these people, the Kuki Chins, whom the Mizos consider as their own kinsmen, the Mizos argue that these people were left on the other side of the border after the coming of the British and the signing of the Treaty of Yandabu in 1826, which led to the redrawing of the borders in the northeast by the British government. In fact, just a few months back, the minister who currently holds the portfolio of information and public relations in the Mizoram cabinet, I remember he had specifically mentioned that the state has not collected the biometric data of any immigrant till date, and the government has also decided not to do so on humanitarian grounds. So the stance of the Mizoram government is clear, but it is very, very dangerous. It has clearly said that no move can be made on this matter till the elections are over. And refugees have been entering en masse into Mizoram from Myanmar since the February 2021 military coup in Myanmar. And the center has been repeatedly requesting the government of Mizoram to check this inflow of refugees with immediate effect, because the state governments do not have the power to grant refugee status to any foreigner. But the government of Zoramthanga has been very firm in its stand, and and as a result of this, the government of Manipur also has sought an extension for the collection of biometric data of the refugees. Although Manipur had begun this process in July this year with the assistance of officials from the NCRB, that is the National Crime Records Bureau, but Chief Minister Biren Singh had recently said that he would request the central government, the Ministry of Home Affairs, for an extension of the timeline by a year or so, since the ongoing conflict in Manipur is also leading to a delay of the exercise.
Okay, so can we now discuss how this stance that the government took, how that affects the Hindus who live in Mizoram?
Yes. So, see, first we need to also understand that how come these refugees, before we move on to the Hindu issue, how come these refugees are settling in Mizoram so easily? One, I mentioned that these Mizos, they consider these Kukis as belonging to their same ethnicity. So, we must also understand that a majority of the Kuki Chin people who are migrating from Myanmar, they are Christians. So, it is easy for them to settle in the Christian majority state of Mizoram and adopt the Mizo culture and language. Also, the similarity of their facial features with the local Mizos makes them almost indistinguishable. So, who is a Mizo, who is from Myanmar? It's very difficult to distinguish because of their facial features. And it is suspected that and I am saying this from my experience, a huge number of people residing in Mizoram, especially in the border districts, and calling themselves Mizos, they are illegal immigrants from Myanmar. It has been suspected since a long time, and the region that is today inhabited by the Mizos, that is present day Mizoram, this was the original homeland of the Hindu Riyangs and the Chakmas, who are also collectively known as the Bru community. And these Hindu Riyangs and Chakmas, they were systematically made to leave Mizoram for resisting conversions in different stages. First, during the MNF-led insurgency, and again later in the 1990s. It was during 1997, 98, and once more again in 2009, 2010. Census data clearly shows census data of 1961. As per the census data of 1961, the Riyangs of Mizoram were 100% Hindus, but almost more than 90% of them are Christians now. They were allowed by the church to stay in Mizoram only on the ground that they convert to Christianity and adopt the Mizo culture and language. One of the major demands of the Riyangs has been the establishment of a Bru Autonomous Council in Mizoram, just like on the lines of what the Chakmas, the Maras, and the Lais have their own autonomous councils in Mizoram. But the Christian Mizos are firmly against the establishment of such a council for the Riyangs. Ethnic cleansing of these Hindu Riyangs from their own homeland, that is from Mizoram, was followed by the removal of their names from the voters' lists. Their lands were encroached by the Mizo churches. Chief Minister Zoramthanga has cultivated the image of a leader of the Mizos, including that of the Kuki people from across the border. Uh, it was in 2019, I remember, this advisor to the MNF and Mizoram Sports Minister, Robert Romavia, had clearly mentioned that the current government headed by Zoram Thanga had no international boundary as far as the unification of Mizo communities was concerned. And he had also mentioned that special allocations would be made in the budget, in the state's budget, for the unification of all Mizo tribes living in different parts of not just the Northeast but across India and the world. So we can understand the dangerous dimensions of this problem.
Now, what happened to the Hindu communities that were displaced? Are they now in like refugee camps in other parts of India, or are they?
Several of them, yeah, they
Yeah.
are still living in refugee camps in several remote areas along the Tripura Mizoram border. I had spoken about
Okay.
this earlier in several of my earlier talks. Yes.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.